Welcome to The Long Game. We are here with Alvaro Nunez. Alvaro is a world record super athlete, businessman, book writer, best-selling book writer, and entrepreneur. He's done so much, he's achieved so much, and he's very young. You recently had your birthday, and I was surprised at how young you are because you really have accomplished so much in your life. Alvaro, let's hear, where are you from? Where did you grow up, and what were the early days like?
Well, Jay, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the kind introduction and for welcoming to the show. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not so much about how much you do in the years, is what you do in the years that matter. And I do believe that once you leave the comfort zone, you are entering a path that is going to help you expedite your journey towards accomplishing something big. And that's what happened to me. I was in Madrid, Spain, which is where I'm originally from. And then at an early age, I left and I came here to the States with a tennis scholarship and got into the university, got my education, and then I kind of fell in love with the whole American dream and the entrepreneurship mindset. And here we are now today, just doing all the things that at one point in my life I dreamt of.
That's incredible. And sports is a way to really train yourself and learn how to be a successful person, have that discipline. When did you start playing tennis, and competitively, what was that like growing up? Were you always a champion? Was it something you really had to work at? Were your parents into tennis? And what was that sports journey like as a kid?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that consistency beats intensity all the time. And I was never the talented kid, or I was never the guy that won all the tournaments. I was just an average dude trying to work hard at it. And it took me a little bit longer to become good at the sport. I started at an early age. I was also doing judo, became eventually black belt. And between those two disciplines, I realized that tennis was going to be my focal point. My parents were very supportive in that journey, and I was playing at a really high level, but not enough to live out of tennis or even consider that my path forward. Although I wanted to always use tennis as leverage to do something bigger with my life. And there was a turning point where I had to make a decision during a huge economical crisis where I either quit tennis altogether and just focus on my education and try to earn some sort of income while getting a job with the education that I wanted to get, or I used tennis and I leveraged it to get a scholarship somewhere, and the US was a perfect path for that. So I never really stopped playing tennis throughout my career, but I definitely knew that after having this serious conversation with my coach, where he told me that, look, Alvaro, you're 15 years old. The people that live out of tennis are usually the top 100. And to reach the top 100, you need to understand that the average age is between 22 and 25. And every year there is like 10 to 20 people that enter the top 100 and that leave the top 100. It's usually the same people in there. So the chances of you getting there are so slim, and it will still take time to get there, like you're 15. So based on your current situation where we went through a huge economical crisis, we lost everything at home. We literally lost everything. My father was hospitalized with some heart issues, and it was one of those decisions that you gotta then be very firm and believe that in the unknown, there is gonna be growth. And that's when we started to talk about the long game, right? Because this is not something that you wake up one day and then voila, you're a successful entrepreneur or you're a successful athlete. This is something that you gotta take a chance on, but be consistent at it. So for me, I use tennis as leverage to open a whole new world. And from there on, more opportunities started to open up that I was just cherishing, even in the unknown.
Right. So you use tennis as a launch pad. You built that sports, that competitive drive, that discipline. You understood the realities of becoming pro, becoming top 100 in the world. It sounds like you had a great coach who he was also practical. When you were evaluating and you were in a tough economic situation, your father was sick, what were you thinking about? What options were in front of you at that time? Now you've gone on to accomplish a lot more, But in the early days, it was maybe survival. It was just get through that period. What was that like, and what were some of the decisions you made, and then the direction that you went?
I think it's more about, rather than having a survival mentality, is having an abundant mentality, which is difficult to have when you're going through difficulties, but definitely being exposed to what's out there in the world, it can open up your mind. And that is something that I always encourage everybody. There is somebody out there that is already doing what you want to do. Whether then later on you make adjustments and make it your own little thing and you become an outlier, but there is already a path that you can sort of walk or feel at least inspired towards. And for me, it was about who is already in the US that plays tennis, that has gained a scholarship, and that has now built so many opportunities for themselves. And I saw those little friends that I had back in the day that were a bit older, that they were doing that. And then when you see that as an opportunity, you want to go full in. And not everybody's going to agree with you. Not everybody's going to think that it's a great idea. And you don't have to have all the support of everybody telling you that that's a great move. But as long as you have the key people in your life that are going to support you no matter what. And in this case, my mother, for example, she was my best friend. She still is my best friend. And she was the biggest supporter on that decision and the one that actually encouraged me to do it. Because when you are a young kid, you're still unsure of what path you should be taking, right? And sometimes you believe that by taking this path or by choosing this path, you're giving up on something else. But it's all about transforming your identity and to evolving. If you want to level up, you got to leave room for that new version of yourself. And that kid was no longer going to be in that next picture. So I got to remove what Alvaro was doing and only take those habits and routines that have been developed and take them on into this new identity that I was building for myself.
That's amazing. And you talked about mindset, Alvaro, and having an abundance mindset. And you clearly embody that. You've written a best-selling book called Level Up. And we're gonna get into that and talk more about that journey and that process. So much in business and life is how we react and our mindset. Where did you develop your mindset to achieve, to compete in these long distance competitions, these really grueling sports feats where other people can't even comprehend what you're going through, the biking, the running, the Ironmans, the super competitions that you've gone through? Where did this mindset come from? And how has it evolved? And how do you feed it? Because people want to know, how do they become bulletproof? And how do they level up? So we'd love to hear, about your mindset.
And it's a great question. A lot of people often ask me, what's your biggest asset? I always talk about my mind. But that is a mind that has been developed throughout the years. And that's by enduring the pain, by enduring the uncomfortable situations, and by not running away from the inner conversations that are the most important ones. When I often go to train, I train by myself. I train in pure silence. I no longer have headphones with music. I have those conversations that we often try to escape from. So I do believe that to build a bulletproof mindset, you gotta put yourself to the test daily. Do something that is uncomfortable. Do something that is gonna give you resistance and really endure the pain. I use pain as fuel. I don't run from it. I actually seek it. Because if I look back into the moments that have made me stronger, and not physically, but mentally, are the moments that I was struggling with. So right now, all those challenges that you see that I'm doing, like just recently in 1 year, 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days, race across America, the world's toughest bicycle race, Ultraman, double distance of an Ironman, finishing top 5 in the world. I could tell you all sorts of achievements that have happened over the last 12 to 24 months. And that is a result of all these previous years training my mind and not just my body. So the same concept of the consistency compounds, it's applied to everything. And if you read the right books, if you surround yourself with the right people, if you put yourself to the test daily, if you feed your mind with positive affirmations, I do have a mental Rolodex of things that I go through every day in order to grow that mind. The same day that you go to the gym and you lift or you go for a run, I use exercises to grow my mind. But ultimately, what I see that really resonates the most with a lot of people is how can you visualize what you're trying to accomplish? Because everything happens twice, first in your mind and then in reality. I often talk about how the distance between your dreams and reality is between your ears, and that's your mind. So however it is that you can program your mind to take action daily to get you closer towards that thing and not pulling away because it feels heavy or it feels difficult, that's the moment that you start leveling up. And we can go deep into that topic because I love the whole concept of mental fortress, but this is something that throughout a lot of inner work and a lot of silent retreats, a lot of darkness retreats, a lot of things that I've done that really creates that bulletproof mindset, those are the things that I can tell you that have made a huge difference, not just in my sports career, but as an entrepreneur, as a partner, as a family member, as a friend. And that is something that you can carry with you forever.
That's so important. And affirmations and visualization is something that I believe in personally myself and that I practice every single day. So I have my own affirmations. I have my own vision for my life. And the top performers understand that everything does start in between your ears, in your mind, and in your brain. And you've clearly harnessed that. What are some of those affirmations? Because people hear about it. You hear Conor McGregor, he's talked about it very publicly. Dana White talking about manifesting and how powerful the mind is. Tony Robbins, some of these other very successful entrepreneurs and business people and leaders and visionaries. What are the practical things that you've done, Alvaro, to incorporate affirmations? And is it something that you do, when you're training, or do you have like a notebook of things that you read, that you say to yourself, and how do you do that in practice?
Great question. And it comes down to your mental state. If you are in a survival mental state, like we talked at the beginning, you're never going to be able to reach that level of visualization. For me, it's very important every day to start with 3 things I'm grateful for. The gratitude mindset is supercharges your soul. And when you have a fulfilled soul, you're able to then operate at a higher level. So I start with the gratitudes, and then from there on, I go straight into my vision. And a vision that I look not only as something that I read, but something that I see, something that I listen to, something that I feel. So it's like the 5 sense vision board, where I have like a whole movie that I'm watching, I'm listening, I'm feeling, and it makes me feel that I'm already in it. Because you are the hero of your own journey. You are that main character of the movie. And if you're already feeling it with all your senses, the difference in your mind is no longer whether this is real or not. It's the same. And you'll start attracting more and more towards that. Then you start going towards your why. I go through my why. Because ultimately, why do I have this vision for myself? There needs to be a stronger purpose in it, because that's what's going to give you the ultimate power to continue where things get hard. And then beyond that, you got to make sure that every little action that you take is aligned with your values. Are you being real with yourself on what matters most? So I remind myself of the values that I need to carry in every decision that I take every day. And then beyond that, the wheel of life. What are the different areas in my life and how aligned I am with each one of them? I no longer look at it as balanced, because ultimately, if you want to be a high performer, you're going to be out of balance. I'm out of balance all the time. But when you zoom out, I bring balance. And I don't use that word lightly because I don't really like it. I could call it extreme balance, but I like alignment, where everything I do in the long term, it's aligned. And just last year, when I was training for Race Across America, 12 days nonstop, coast to coast, 3,000 miles, 23 hours per day on a bike, 1 hour of sleep per day. When you train for a challenge like this, you're going to be unbalanced. My life was 12 hours on a bike every single day. And then on top of that, try to manage business, relationships, and this and that. It becomes out of balance. But if you zoom out, you're able to then pick up where you left on these other areas and you find alignment. So again, back to the visualization and your why and the values and the will of life, it's very important to keep that in check. And then I go straight into what we talked about, reverse engineering. Like, what are those big goals, whether it's 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, and you just break it down into things that you can now track. I love tracking. So if I have big goals, I go backwards into the point where everything for the week is on the calendar and it's very strategic, no space. Everything is programmed to execute. And those goals are only goals that are aligned to reach that bigger goal. And when you plan for it, then it's going to happen. It's like what Tony Robbins said, right? And there is a lot of different quotes out there. I know the one from Benjamin Franklin. If you are planning to, like, what is it? If you plan to fail, you're failing to plan, or vice versa. It's one of those.
If you fail to plan,
you fail to plan. Yeah. See, that's why my language is not so good yet, but I'm getting there. But point of the story of what I'm trying to make here is important to plan, because when you're planning, then you're able to execute on it.
That's right. So there was so much to unpack there, and success is, you clearly plan a lot, and you talked about your high-level goals, your goals for maybe the year, for the month, for the week, for the day, for the hour. So you're very organized. Success is doing a lot of small steps, a lot of the quiet work, the boring work, day in and day out, and letting that compound. How do you manage that? Because you have these endurance competitions that you are going after, you're achieving, you're excelling, you're winning, you're performing in the very top, of the world in terms of athletics. How do you plan? Is that on a daily basis? Is there a day of the week? So for the listeners, they know if they're looking to achieve big goals, how do you go about planning and organizing your life around some of these big goals that you're going after and achieving?
Great question, and there is no secret formula since everybody's different, and even the definition of success is different for everybody. For me, success, it's broken down into the 3 P's. It's peace, purpose, and progress. As long as I'm taking care of those 3 things and that my life is aligned to allow me to have peace, not a chaotic environment, peace within myself and therefore outside, I'm having a purpose, that's the why that we talked about, and then progress towards that vision that we always have. That is the things that, for me at least, is considered success. For everybody, it might be something different, right? But it's important that you define what success looks like for you. Now, how I broke it down throughout the day in order to achieve that is, yes, I have different buckets. In the morning, I have my bucket that focuses on capacity. Capacity is one thing that I focused on, which is about either my mind, my body, my soul, anything that moves me towards being a more fulfilled human, right? I'm carrying this with me throughout life. How can I improve that? That's my first bucket. Then I have the connection bucket, which is something about connecting with, whether it's deepen up a relationship with my family, something that is moving the needle in an important relationship. And then you're focusing on the different for business, right? And that is something that I do personally think that you can break it down into sub buckets and whatever matters to you. Right now I have multiple projects, so I have multiple buckets that I allocate time for specific things that I want to do throughout the day. And I feel that whenever I have that systematic bucket work in place, I function better. And yes, you can make adjustments, but as long as you have identified your quadrants of what matters most, what's important and you got to do now, what's not important but you got to do now, so you delegate. What's not important and it's not something that you have to do now, remove it completely. Like, there is different ways on how you can organize your day, but definitely I think that the biggest high performers that have accomplished a lot, they understand what they need to execute first. They need to focus on what matters, and then the rest is delegated or eliminated completely. It's not so much about doing more. It's about removing what's not necessary.
That's right. So you started with tennis in sports in your athletic career. How did you transition into endurance and some of these super competitions that you've been doing and exercising in? What was that like? What was the early days of these endurance competitions like, and how has it evolved to where you're at today?
Comes back down to what we talked about. Consistency compounds.
Yep.
And I was never really seeking to be doing what I'm doing today.
Right.
I never even knew that existed. Like, if you tell me today, oh, Did you think that you will be doing the world's toughest bicycle race? Did you ever dream of competing at the world's toughest triathlon and finishing top 5 in the world? No idea that even existed.
Yeah.
And I have so many fun stories about these things, but ultimately it's about just getting started. For me, it was more curiosity on how far can I go? And back to your podcast, the long game. I'm here because I want to be on the long game. I don't want to just do one thing one time and it's over. I want to show up every day and build it a habit, make it part of my lifestyle. When people talk about, oh man, you're crazy. No, it's part of my lifestyle. And I remember that there is moments in life that are the moments that can change for good or for bad. They can break you or they can build you. For me, it was that moment where I came to the US with an investor visa after I had to leave the country. And when I came back with an investor visa, I actually was very thrilled about this new chapter. And what I encountered was completely the opposite, where I was engaged to my beautiful fiance, and I found out she was with somebody else as soon as I came back. Same thing with my business partner. He was doing something that he was not aligned with our business, and we had to split. So in a fraction of a second, when I thought everything was going to be amazing, all of a sudden I encounter a completely different reality, and that can break you. And I also understand that these moments are the best moments to level up. So I use that pain as fuel to aim for something bigger. And I remember that same day that I found that my fiance was with somebody else, I actually was crying. And I said, okay, Alvaro, you know that now is the moment to do something about it. And I Googled world's toughest challenges, and this huge list came out. Everest, this, that. And at the bottom it said Ironman. There's like the 1 day hardest event, whatever. It's like, okay, cool. I say, I've heard of this Ironman thing. Needless to say, I never swam, I never rode a bike, and I did 6 miles.
That's
at the
incredible.
most.
Yeah.
And I thought, all right, well, let's go. I signed up for an Ironman that it was happening like a few months later. And not a half, but a full.
A full Ironman.
Never done a race in my life.
Which one was it? The Hawaii?
No, you cannot do the Hawaii because you got to qualify for it.
Okay.
I just signed up for one that was in Spain.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, all right, well, let's figure this out. And I put my shoes on. It was just tennis shoes that I had on. I had no watch, no nothing. And I just went for a run. And I thought, okay, let me download this Nike app and just at least to track how far I'm going to be. And I just ran and I said, I'm going to run as far as I can. And whenever I can't keep going, I'll catch my breath and keep on going. And I threw up that day. I was like destroyed. And it was like 3 a.m. and I was running just like on the street. And then when I came back, I realized, oh my God, I ran over a half marathon. That's crazy. No water, no nothing. I was just like doing the thing. And I realized, oh my God, if I'm able to do a half marathon without knowing anything, where can I go? And then a lot of people, what happens here is that they get this analysis paralysis. They sign up for something and all of a sudden they need to have everything figured out. The perfect training plan, the perfect devices, the perfect nutrition, the perfect everything. You don't need any of that. Everything that you have right now is all you need to get started. And as long as you keep showing up every day, then slowly you implement things. I had no coach, I had no equipment, I had nothing. I just like literally showed up and started doing it. And eventually I got a bike on Facebook Marketplace for like $500. And I started to ride with people that had these $10,000 bikes and perfect equipment. I had not even clits. I was just going with my tennis shoes on the bike, and everybody thought, who's this guy, you know? And I was just the guy that will not give up. And I was joining these groups that were going for like 80 miles or 100 miles, and I was just outlasting them, because there is one thing that I realized that day, and that is that I might not be the most talented, I might not be the strongest, I might not be the fastest, but I'm the one that is going to endure the most. And that is what started to build calluses on my mind to keep on going when everybody was stopping. And I will say to myself, I will outlast everybody. And that's what I started to do. I started to just go the endurance game. I started to go the long game. And I started to show up every day. And that Ironman eventually became my next Ironman, then the next one. Then I qualified for the World Championship. And then I said, oh, what's next? And then I started to do other ultra endurance events, and then eventually other races and other races, and I kept leveling up. And it was not because I was training more, it's because consistency compounded. And a lot of people that I see is that they accomplish one goal and they're like, oh, I done it. And then they go back to their old habits or their old ways of living. I said, if it took me that long to be here, why would I go back here? My standards are here now. And not just my standards, but my way of living and the habits and the mindset. It doesn't mean that you gotta keep on going that route forever. You can apply that same mentality and the same structure towards something else, but don't stop. You grow or you die.
You turned a tough situation, a painful situation, a tragic experience into something successful and into a journey where you've been compounding success, consistency, showing up day in and day out. These ultra marathons and events that you've been running and competing in, what's been the most challenging event or marathon that you've been in? What are some of the most challenging times that you've had on this journey?
The next one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's always the next one. But no, honestly, your mindset changes over time. Like for me right now, it's not so much about chasing the next thing. It's about being more present and really aligned with things that matter in my life in this chapter more than going for that next world record or going for that next thing. But I will say that when you look back into the early stages, those are the moments that have redefined the way that you do things. And I remember there's a term called misogi. It's a Japanese term that talks about doing something that you are very afraid of doing, but that you know is going to have a huge impact in your life. And when I came across this term many years ago, I said to myself, what is that misogi that I want to have for this year? And I signed up for the world's toughest foot race, which is Marathon des Sables. Is 6 marathons in 6 days across the Sahara Desert. And I was no runner whatsoever.
That's really interesting to hear, because when I see you competing, I see a super athlete, and I think, Alvaro has been training his whole life. He was built for this. So to hear the story about how you got into your first Ironman and how you weren't a runner, you weren't a biker, you weren't an initial triathlete, that's really interesting to hear. So 6 marathons across the Sahara, that sounds horrible.
Look, I've been a big believer that if you're going to do something, why not to aim for the best? Why not?
Yeah.
The people that say, I want to do a half marathon, why? Aim for a marathon and you'll hit the half marathon along the way to do the marathon, right? If you don't aim for something higher, it's because either you don't see yourself capable of doing that or you don't have the mindset of staying consistent to get there. Because it's not a matter of training more. It's just that it might take you longer to get there. And don't get me wrong.
You have to endure and you have to outlast.
Right.
I love that thought.
Look, one of the things that we can apply for business is that you don't build what you're doing now just because one day you decided, I'm going to do it and tomorrow it happens. No, it's because you had that dream, you had that vision, and you're willing to play the long game.
Yes.
So same thing applies here. I said to myself, what is the toughest foot race in the world? And then I saw that, and I said, okay, what do I need to go in order to get there? And that was the journey. And I remember getting there, and in the process of getting there, I knew that you're going to find a lot of resistance because you got to carry all your food and supplies with you. So you're basically with a backpack carrying everything that you need for those 6 days. And I said to myself, there needs to be something that goes beyond just wanting to do something hard. And that's when I found the real power of having a strong why. And that is what we go back down to, that initial checklist of things that you do every morning. And for me, having that why is very strong because I know that if you have a strong why, that's what's going to make you continue when things are difficult or where things are screaming to you to stop. And in that race, it was very interesting because before I went in there, I saw a friend of mine that was super successful, had it all. Beautiful family, wealth, achievement, status, and one day committed suicide. And what we found out is that he was going through such a strong depression. And you can call it whatever you want, but ultimately it was something inside that he never shared to the world that was eating him alive to the point that he took his life away. And I said, how is this even possible? Somebody that has it all and all of a sudden. So it made me think a lot. And I knew there was a lot of other people that have been going through this, and I wanted to do something about it. And on top of all the weight that you're carrying with your food and supplies, I put a weight on my back, a plate that said the weight
You made it even harder. Yes. Yeah.
the weight of depression. And if the challenge itself was already hard, I was going to make it harder, but I was going to give it a additional purpose. And I did this campaign called The Weight of Depression, where hundreds and hundreds of people started to share all the struggles that they were carrying inside. And I was carrying their names and their stories along the Sahara Desert so that at the end of the race, I would bury that weight. And when I did that, I remember that now I had a strong purpose. And in the middle of the race, when a lot of these successful professional athletes were quitting, and when I had the entire skin of my feet out, when I was bleeding on my shoulders, when I was peeing blood because I had kidney failure, when everybody was telling me that it was impossible for me to continue, that is in the moment where I saw the weight, I saw my purpose, and that's what made me continue. And not only to continue and to finish the race, but to finish among the first on the last day, because the body was breaking down and was getting more damaged every day, but my mind was getting stronger. And when you are getting stronger with your mindset, that is something that is going to make you unstoppable. So I think that story, when you asked me about what was one of those early stages, that was one of the stories that remind me that having a strong purpose is one of those powerful things that you can carry in anything you do that is going to make you feel unstoppable.
And you've written a book. So this was an incredible story and anecdote. And clearly, Alvaro, you've harnessed the power of your mind, your willpower, your determination to accomplish these great things. So let's talk about Level Up. Where did you get the idea? Clearly, you live it, you breathe it. And what are some of the ideas, you've touched on a number of them already, from your book? And what's some advice that you would give to other people out there that are looking to go to the next level and to level up?
No, great question. And that's something that it all starts with your mind. I do think that a lot of people, they look into obstacles as an excuse to stop going after their goals. And the whole point here with the book is how you can turn those obstacles into superpowers. That same story that I was telling you on how this ultra endurance journey started, it's about how can you change and flip the way that you're looking at obstacles and understand that those are the biggest opportunities for you to level up. And the story on the book is just a broken down list of things that have happened that is relatable to the listener or to the reader, to understand that whatever it is that you're going through, understand that it's a blessing. You are the author of your own story. You are the hero of your journey. You are the one that the harder the quest, the harder the moment that you're living on, the sweeter the story is going to be at the end. You just don't give up. You just keep on showing up every day. You're playing the long game. And this is what the whole Level Up mindset is about.
Amazing, amazing. You're an inspiration. Let's talk about, as an athlete, how you take care of your body, how you feed yourself, the recovery. I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it. I'm sure you have a team. So for the listeners out there, people are very interested in health, wellness, and longevity these days. What are you doing to take care of Alvaro's body?
It's a great question, and one of those that a lot of people, they worry, right, about Alvaro. They're like, man, you're putting yourself too much to the test, whether it's skydiving or these challenges or this and that. But no, ultimately, I think that it's not about performing. It's about longevity. I do want to carry this body forever. I don't want to be in a few years unable to move. So definitely the way that you take care of yourself on a daily basis is what's going to compound. And I do take care of the basics: good sleep, good nutrition, good hydration. But then I also look into the things that have helped me move the needle, right? Because if you're putting yourself to the test every day and you're always pushing that envelope on what can you do as a human, you gotta do what others are not doing. So for me, it has been very important to partner up with 10X Health, for example. Many years ago, I found out about them. I became good friends with them. We started to work together. And one of the things that I've never realized is that whatever works for me doesn't necessarily have to work for you, right? So now there's this test, like the precision genetic test. So you get your precision genetic supplement, something that is specifically made for you. So that has also been a big game changer. And then recovery, right? Like if you're taking care of the right recovery methods, for me, things that have helped me a lot, especially as an athlete now with so much miles in my body, cold plunge has worked well.
Cold plunge.
Red light therapy has been great.
what kind of red light therapy, what kind of cold plunge? Because everyone knows nutrition, sleep. What are some of the day-to-day supplements that you're using, cold plunges? How important are those for your recovery and for your overall regimen?
Well, ultimately, I think that it's not about what is good, it's about what can you do daily, right? Because you can do a cold plunge and red light once and it's not going to make a significant change in your life. It's about what can you do daily. And you got to understand that everybody's different and everybody sees different benefits, but I do believe that it's about what we're talking about. This is the long game. How can I do something every day, turn it into a routine and a habit so that I see the effect that it's going to have on the long term? For me, obviously, like now, I've applied certain concepts that are non-negotiables, right? Like I do take care of myself every night by stretching, doing the cold plunge, doing the red light, doing certain things that before it was just like temporarily, but now I've built an ecosystem where everywhere I go, I try to do that. And for people out there that are like wondering what's good for me, what's not good for me, I will say just start by getting to know yourself. That's the first thing.
Looking internally, getting to know.
There is so many ways for you to track data and for you to understand what you're lacking. For me, one of the eye openers, and at least what got me into the journey, it was not like, oh yeah, this person is saying that this is great, let me give it a go and see if it goes. You can do that and then test it and change and this. But one thing that you cannot lie and argue about is your results. And if you start with your blood work, you start with your genetic test, you start with your gut test. Gut test is great. We have that in 10x Health as well.
These are things that 10x you can do at 10x Health.
Oh, but it's very interesting because the same foods that you take might not be as good as for me, right? Because everybody has a different reaction in their gut. And those are just little things that you can just adjust and it's going to have a huge difference. So for me, it's been about having an understanding on what's important for me, what are the things that I should be taking on and avoiding, and ultimately something that it's a no-brainer for people to stop overcomplicating things. And that's just one thing that I see all the time. People start overcomplicating by trying to do so much. It's about really removing, and this is one of the things we were talking earlier on, remove the noise. Like, what are the things that you're currently doing that are not serving you? And you don't need an expert to tell you that. I don't drink alcohol. I don't need to tell you that alcohol is bad. So if you can remove things that you know that are not good for you, do it, right? Like when I stopped drinking, it had a huge difference. When I actually think that people that are very disciplined and start applying that discipline towards your health, they see a tremendous growth.
Tremendous. Alcohol, I think alcohol is going to be the cigarette of our generation, where our parents smoked, we drank, but we're learning alcohol has such negative effects. Gen Z, alcohol has gone way down. What's next for Alvaro? What are you focused on these days? You recently had a birthday. You're working with 10x Health. You're removing things that are a distraction. What's next? What are you excited about? What next mountain are you leveling up to?
Well, it's funny that you talk about mountains. I'm going into this quest of doing the 7 summits, which is the tallest mountain in each continent. I've already done 4 of them. So in a few months, I'll be doing Denali, which is in Alaska, and then next year Everest. But this is one of the things that I'm excited about, to go more towards the mountaineering route. I love the whole idea of seeing the world, right? It expands your mind. It's not for the world to see you, but for you to see the world. I feel like when we remove ourselves from all the chaos and the noise and you're able to just be with yourself, because the mountains doesn't care about who you are, doesn't care if you are an influencer, well-known person or a billionaire guy or just a regular dude trying to do something hard. Ultimately, you got to go there with humility, with discipline, with courage. And those are the things that when you're present, that come out so nicely out of you. And that is on a personal, challenging level. Obviously, I have a couple world record attempts that I'll be doing, but I want to do it more with teams and groups. It's not anymore a solo journey. And on a personal, but also professional route, yes, I'm partnering up with 10x Health. We want to take on this journey farther and more international and have a huge impact. And then...
How did you connect with 10x, with Grant and his team?
Well, it was just many years ago. The people that started the company, I was friends with them. We started to build a relationship. I was kind of starting this journey of an ultra endurance athlete, and I became a brand ambassador. And for many years, I was working with them as an ambassador. And then ultimately, as I started to do bigger things and other projects professionally with my company, Super Luxury Group, and we started to activate real estate, celebritize it, and to do many interesting projects within the high-end real estate and luxury lifestyle, we implemented wellness and we brought them into the mix. And now it took a point where I said, listen, guys, like this is something that we are very aligned. How can we take this farther? And we've came into terms where became more of a partner and more of a person that can really make an impact on how we help people and expand the company. So that is a very exciting project. And then the whole Level Up brand is another type of movement that I'm trying to keep on leaning towards, because I do see that people need some sort of guidance, but not anymore from just knowledge, but from somebody that is doing the thing. Because there's a lot of people out there that are coaches, and anybody can be in front of a camera, get some nice quotes from ChatGPT, tell them to the camera, and be...
You're living it.
Well, but that's,
You're running marathons.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
You see a lot of these viral accounts of people that are saying so many inspirational things, and nothing wrong with it. It's great. You know,
Right.
I sometimes come across that. I'm like, oh my God, that's good. But I do believe that there is something unique about living it and putting yourself to the test daily, and then you can speak from that. And people really resonate. And in fact, the other day, I was just in this event at a tournament here in paddle, and one guy comes to me and is like, you might not remember me, but you saved my life. And I'm like, whoa, that's a very bold statement for somebody to say. And I said, whoa, how so? It's like, well, because when you were doing the race across America and you made that promise to your father that if you didn't quit on the race, he wouldn't quit on his treatment during cancer. I was going through cancer at the same time. And watching your story every single day throughout that race gave me the strength to not give up on my treatment. And I made it alive on the other side. So I wanted to say thank you for that. And I was like, whoa. So you never know who's watching.
You never know.
Right?
Yeah.
And there is a difference between just sharing a fun or inspirational quote versus showcasing a story, a journey that really reaches the heart. So I do believe that, back to your question on what's next for Alvaro, is I'll continue doing these big challenges, but in a more contained way so that it doesn't take all the time from all the other projects that I want to focus on. But it's always going to be with the same mission. How can we help elevate people's lives? It's not anymore about doing projects just because they are like shiny. It's because everything is aligned with the same mission, elevating people's lives, whether it is through wellness, whether it is through the mindset, whether it is through the community that we're building with Level Up. All that is in that same path towards, I wouldn't say enlightenment very lightly, but towards really elevating people's life.
Alvaro, you're a champion. You're an inspiration. I can't wait to watch you accomplish more and more and watching your journey. Keep it up. Thank you for being on The Long Game.
Thank you, brother.